Hey folks, this is Lucid, and as most of you probably know already, there has been a major patch released for Dominions. It is the 2-year anniversary patch. It's hard to believe that the game has only been out for 2 years. It certainly feels like longer than that. And with this patch, there is a ton of new content. There are 2 new nations, Ind and Naba, and I'm not ready to do a national overview of them, but I do have a test game pulled up where I can show you some of the things that are in these nations, and at least some super preliminary thoughts. But we're going to, at the beginning, go through the rest of the patch notes, and we'll do the Ind and Naba at the end. There's also a bunch of new pretenders that got released. A lot of these are for the Naba faction, or nation, though some of these may also be applicable to other nations as well. There's an ability, Iron Vulnerability. This has to do with how elves were kind of reworked. Elves are made more vulnerable to iron weapons, but I think as a buff, they also get like an attack skill increase or something like that. And then there's a new ability, Unseen. I can't remember what that is, but I think it has to do with glamour. Next up, we have improved battle log for spells and missiles. This was one thing that was pretty annoying. It was really hard to figure out if people were getting hit. Even if you dove into the deep game, if you put like DD on the game executable for extensions, and then you looked at the log file in one of the game folders, it was really hard to tell what was happening when things got hit by missiles. So this is a pretty nice addition there. If you want to figure out who gets hit by what, you can see now. I haven't actually tested it. I don't know. I assume if you do 4, here I was actually just looking up. I'll show you real quick. Here's some of the pretenders for Naba. But you can see there's this whole class of all these pretenders up here. The Statue of Beginnings, all these Battles, and then the Wooden Colossus and where's the Stone Colossus? God Block, Stone Colossus, Bronze Colossus. And then down here there's the Sahira. And then there's these Ilatas. Lihat? I don't know how to say that. But anyway, we have these guys too. So anyway, some new pretenders, kind of cool. I'm going to pull up my test game real quick. We'll see if the Archer Fire... we'll see if that... Where is it? Ind and Naba test. Here we go. Where do I have archers? Do we have archers in this stack? Just get a shit ton of these guys. Just wait one turn. Perfect. And we'll talk about what's actually in the Ind faction, but first let's see. Got a bunch of bad events this turn, it looks like. So I pulled, for those of you who don't know, if you hit 1, 2, 3, or 4 on your keyboard. Oh, nice. So it actually shows it now. This is new, I think. Or some parts of it I can't exactly remember which penetration roll. I think this is new. I think this part's new. I wonder if it also shows like the shield proccing and stuff like that. I just remember recently I was actually looking through trying to figure out what happened, and the missiles were very hard to see. I can't remember the system before, but it could have been it completely did not show missiles in the battle log. I think that's how it was, but I could be wrong. Increase maximum length of battle log for 64-bit versions. That's nice. Maximum number of installed maps increased. I think this is actually more to do with bot servers than normal people. Like, I don't think normal people are going to have over 300 maps. Unless there's some of you sick bastards out there who've played 300 multiplayer games. Battle enchantment pop-up shows who cast it. That's actually really nice. So what this means is when you click on a battle enchantment, it'll probably tell you the name of who cast it. So a lot of times you're wondering who put it up, or if it goes down all of a sudden, you need to find out like who cast it that got, routed or killed for it to go down. And so anyway, now you can see it, which is pretty cool. I'm sure where it will be is when you hover your icon over it up here, it's going to tell you. Less filtering of the main map, making it sharper when zoomed out. So that's not an issue I've ever noticed, but I guess there were some issues if you zoomed it out, it got like foggy or something. Prior searches shown for site searching rituals. So this actually is really useful. There was something you had to do that was really annoying before. Well, I don't really have anything researched, but if I were to cast a site searching spell, you would click on the province and you wouldn't have any idea. Let's see if we can actually do it real quick. Let's go to my test game. So before, what would happen, like if we did, we'll do arcane probing. Yeah, so you can see prior searches, this window that's popped up. That's so nice, because before you were looking like, where do I want to cast it? What you would have to do is you would have to like walk around and look at the provinces you would want to cast it. Then once you figured out which province you want to cast it on, you have to like, okay, look at it, remember it, come over here, pick your guy, and then do your actual site searching, like so. But now you can just click around and see where you want to cast it. So that's a huge UI improvement. So that's really nice. New keyboard shortcuts in Forge screen. I meant to test this before the game, but what I was hoping it would be, and it doesn't appear this is the case, is that if you hit one of the letter keys associated with one of the path types, it would show you only things of that path type. Because that would be kind of useful. Because a lot of times you get overwhelmed by options. Especially if you have a lot of paths on your mage. That would be pretty useful. I'm going to pause it real quick, see if I can figure it out. Okay, so these are the hotkeys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's basically just going to toggle you through the categories. So anyway, that's an improvement, I guess. So now you get to do this pretty quickly. And I guess once you get good at it, it probably could save a good bit of time. So anyway, that's kind of cool. One thing, if you don't know, many of the screens in the minions, that's how I just found this out, if you hit question mark, it'll bring up a short key list for that screen. Like if you're in the tactics screen, you can hit question mark, and it'll bring up all the shortcuts for that screen. I don't know if they're always religiously 100% in there, but anyway. Next up, we have flyers could get stuck when trying to attack units on a wall. I think this was from my Macone video, if you saw that. This makes me think the devs kind of watch at least some of my videos. Because I don't think I reported that. I don't think I reported that issue. But it could be somebody else reported it. So anyway, that's really nice to get fixed. That was a really funny video, though. I mean, it was at a point in the game where I was so frustrated playing Macone that it was comical. So I wasn't even that tilted by it, I don't think. Ghost Ship Armada is now the real Ghost Armada. Is now a real Ghost Armada growing strength. So apparently this will get bigger and bigger and harder to kill. Which will be interesting because normally, there's things that don't really care how much chaff you have in your army. So I wonder what they put in there that's going to make it get bigger and harder and tougher. Like if they put liches or some high death path mage, that might actually make it tough for, we could cast it. Let's cast it real quick. Let's see what happens. Ghost Ship Armada. Always take it down in a minute. Oh, nice. Yeah, so it has our banner. It's attacking these neutrals, and it really is ghosts. It's led by this guy, and this guy, and this guy. Fire Mage, so he can do, like, Fire Elemental, yeah. And it's a bunch of ethereal guys without much protection. And they're going to be good against Chaff, but I mean, I guess he has a kind of good weapon. He has a decent kit. Be interesting to see how much stronger they get. Their weapons are okay, but if they end up getting a lot more mage support, it could be a little scary. But if this just, let's just see. So this turn it was 76 dudes. None of our guys died. One second, I need to put PD here so we can see what the hell's actually going on. It's actually, I'm looking at it now, I thought it was kind of indie. Because it never gets used in games, so you never actually see it unless you test it. But, oh wow, so it's way weakened. Huh. But it's kind of useful if you want to maintain control of the coast now. Because you put it up and it's basically... Okay. Oh, can I not do PD here? Let's just have this guy patrol, and then we'll do PD here. Okay, so this is Force 1. This is Force 2, so it's making another group. Interesting. And this appears to replenish its losses, but I don't see it getting, like, more mages yet. But it appears that this is now a semi-viable way to control the coast, like the coastal provinces, since it will put them under your... if they're not forted, they'll just become yours, and they'll be under constant raiding pressure. And it's going, because it's your banner, it's not like an indie attack, it's going to focus only on things that are not your banner. So if you have like half of a coastline controlled, this can put a lot of pressure on the remaining coast. The problem though is once it's pinned down to like one province, then you're in trouble, because if the Armada dies, I believe that is the end of the global. So let's see. And plunder it, okay. I don't remember these mechanics at all. Okay, the goal, so it's going to attack and plunder, and then the gold will be returned to the caster of the enchantment, and the dead will be used to build up the armada. Once enough people have been killed, the admiral will create a new ghost armada, and if the main armada with Admiral Torgan is defeated, no new armadas will be created. Once all armadas are defeated, the enchantment will dissipate. So it appears this would be okay if there's a big coast where it's going to be hard to predict where the main guy will go, because once they know where the main guy is going to go, they just put a big army there and kill it. But if you don't know where the main guy is going to go, you don't want to commit like a huge army everywhere. It's, you know, especially if you're not having to put like 1,000,000 gems in it, it's going to be a reasonably effective way to control the coastline. And then it's going to build up. As you can see, we get multiple ghost armadas the more people we kill. So I would say this is a viable spell now. I would say this is a viable spell. It depends how easily, like, if they can put like a pretty light super combatant that will kill these ghosts in every single coastal province. It's kind of okay. Though the problem then is if you know they're going to do that, then you can counter that. But you won't be countering it with this, because these guys are not going to kill like elite kitted, like even hard thugs, they're probably not going to kill. Okay, It's a Ghost Ship Armada. Patrol Strength is now shown under the Precision stat, which is actually pretty damn useful, because that is a UI request that people have been wanting for a long time. So if we go under Precision, it says Patrol Strength per unit. That's so useful. This was like, it was like a black art guessing what the Patrol Strength units were. So if we look, zombies, Patrol Strength of 1.6, birds, Patrol Strength of 1.8. Birds are particularly good. Kooni, Patrol Strength of 0.06, not very good patrollers. Wolves, I believe undisciplined units are not terribly good patrollers anymore. Wolves are Patrol Strength of 0.7. Yeah, so they're not very good. Undisciplined units now have half patrol strength. Yeah, this is a nerf to wolf patrolling and also to soulless patrolling. And then also maybe like Call of the Winds patrolling. So anyway, that's a debuff for that. And those were, wolf patrolling was probably one of the most common ways to patrol. It's probably still one of the most effective ways, but it's half as effective. Fix for advancing multiple rounds of combat with the N key. I don't know if, I never had a problem with that. Fix for God Vanquished Message. That was funny. This was a message that anybody in a multiplayer game the past few months has known about it. Anytime a player dies, you get a message saying that you died, like that you were eliminated from the game. I think that had some people panicking, but it was just a bugged message. Routing units sometimes failed to run in fort battles. Oh man, so this was a bug. We saw this a few times. Okay, you'll see it coming up in my Dominions All-Stars game. Where basically, we saw it in the Atlantis game. In the Atlantis game, I think, in that big battle in Pangaea, where Yis was attacking Pangaea, some of the Movark Knights just froze. And it caused the battle to time out, killing the monolith also, when they should have just run away. So anyway, that was, I guess... but I can't exactly remember everything that happened there, because there was something that was also really bad for Yis. I can't remember the bad part for Yis. I mean, they lost a ton of their dudes, but maybe it was just that a lot of them froze and the battle timed out with all the frozen guys and the monolith. But it happens again in the All-Stars game. This was a semi-common issue, so hopefully they completely fixed it, because it was actually, it didn't happen, you know, you could never count on it happening, but it would probably happen a couple times a game. And that's really, really annoying. Routing units will now sometimes take slightly non-straight routes. These two might be connected. And it may be that what was causing the routing to not work is after like enough turns of trying to run backwards and you can't do it, they would get stuck. So now I guess this will kind of wibble wobble them around where they're getting stuck, which is kind of nice, because there definitely were routing traffic jams, and hopefully this helps with it. Winter Wolves now have Frost Breath. That's pretty good. That's a nice upgrade for Winter Wolves. New Long Dead for some nations. I think this is primarily Early Age Ulm. And they get, instead of having the big two-handed swords like Middle Age Ulm has, they just get they get basically two axes or two long swords, like kind of like their troops do. The idea is they don't get new tech when they become undead. Dragon Tail Slap was used too often. Not familiar with that. Memory leak in the map editor. That's good to fix. Expand all province borders. This is a map editor feature. Improved spell detail, so I'm guessing this is more tooltips and spells. New icons for forest, for Kelp Forest and Gorge. I'm not actually sure what those are. So this is a gorge. It gets like a monolith-looking icon. And then Kelp Forest gets that. Interesting. Icon for the Obfuscate ability and icon for Corruptor. I think Corruptor is a seduction type attack, but I could be wrong. I can't remember. And then Obfuscate, this is basically like I think like a Gossamer Cloth, where it's going to give glamour to non-glamored units in your army. This is part of Naba. Improved cheat detection. Fix for Commander Q resource exploit. I think when they were I'm not sure what this exploit was, but when they were tinkering with it, they ended up causing a few bugs. One of the things that I like, I don't know if it was an intended feature, but it is a feature that exists in the patch now, is if you have like a fort that can make, that has, well, this doesn't, but if I had a fort that was 3 commander points, you can use only 2 of the commander points now, like recruit a guy, and the next turn, that 1 commander point you didn't use will carry over, but only if you're on repeat recruitment. So if I have my 2 commander guy on repeat recruitment, then this turn, he'll have 1 extra point left over. We're imagining there are 3 points here. Next turn, our guy will still be on repeat recruitment, but we'll have, down here, we'll have 2 points, because we have the 1 extra from this turn, and then we have 1 extra from the turn before. So that's kind of cool. That means you don't have to like half queue up units. You can kind of queue them up the next turn. You don't. The nice thing is you're not, the turn before you basically have to waste gold, because you're spending gold, but you're not going to get anything out for a few turns. So you can spend the gold on other stuff, and now you can queue that commander up later. So that's nice. Fix for commander queue resources. Okay. Shortcut help screen for unit overview and gym transfer. Unit overview. I haven't actually looked at this. Rename transfer units directly. Okay, transfer item under mouse directly into lab L. That's actually really useful. That was something people commented in one of my videos recently that I didn't know about. If you hover over an icon that, like here, if I hit L over this one, it'll take it to the lab, which is super useful. Let's see what the other ones are. View battle log V, I knew that regarding a unit. Select first to 6 unit in square. Okay. Huh, that's interesting. Let's check that out. Is there a battle to watch? So now if I click here and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, I can hit 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 will just toggle me through all the different ones in the square. That's actually really useful. Okay. Next up, we have shortcut. Okay, commander only filter for unit overview screen. So I guess this will get rid of unit overview, commander. Wait, nation overview. Army setup. You know what I wonder? I wonder if it's a filter like this. Like if I go... Oh, this is what it's for. This is the unit overview screen. So if I hit C here, it's only going to show commanders. Which is really useful, because in a big battle, especially when you're summoning things like Undead Chaff or Swarm or something, this thing gets completely taken over. So hitting this will just give you a short list of commanders. Very, very rarely do you use the unit overview screen to look for non-commanders. So that's a really nice UI improvement. Next up, we have the red background. I don't know what this means. We could probably figure it out, but it doesn't seem terribly important. Statistics in the map editor now include team starts. Nice. Sometimes a unit losing an arm could retain his two-handed magic weapon. I've definitely had that happen. Magic duel could miss in some circumstances. Yeah, it could miss kind of a lot. We kind of didn't really... They said that they had fixed magic duel so that it would no longer miss. It's supposed to be 100 precision. But now it's not supposed to miss. Let's actually test this. Let's see if they have indeed fixed it. Where's... Okay, Yis is here. Let's see. Let's have Yis come over here with some guys. Okay, you guys come on top. And then here, let's go ahead and we'll have you 2 idiots patrol. And you guys get to do magic duel. And let's see if this is 100% accurate. Yeah, okay, they've gotten wrecked. That was it. So none of those missed. So anyway, very, very crude preliminary tests suggest that Magic Duel does not miss anymore. We didn't have them at complete max range, but that at least has me feeling confident that maybe this is indeed fixed. I'm not exactly sure what this means. Sight affecting aging rate will now affect recruited commanders. I don't know how this works. We could test it, but I wonder if you have the sight that makes you younger, if you recruit somebody in that sight, if you pop out like really young. As if you spent your whole life training there and have not aged. Which is pretty cool, if that is the case. I think Fascia has a slow aging sight, which would affect that. I can't remember if they have old age units though, but anyway, that's kind of cool. Unstealthy units can no longer raid out of besieged forts. Unstealthy units. Okay. That makes sense. They shouldn't have been able to, but I didn't even know this was a bug, but that definitely would be a bug if they could. A fix for item equipment rules not being properly enforced. I'm not sure what bug that was. Blackhawks got a dive attack. Okay, so that's a buff for Blackhawks. So we'll do Call the Wind here. I should do it here. Okay, dive attack. God, I can't even remember what it was before, but if it was just talents, it would never do anything. But this basically allows them to kill things now. Assuming it was just like beak and talons or some other really shitty attack, this makes them reasonably killy. It is slashing, not piercing. But before, I think they could do basically nothing, and now they can actually do things. So I think that's going to make Call the Wind a better PD attack. Let's see what Yia says here. Okay. We'll put 10 PD here, and we'll just see how Call the Winds does. Call the Winds would normally struggle killing 10 PD. It would struggle a lot. Like, it would usually not work. It would kill some of the stuff, but it would not normally kill it. I have a feeling like it's going to win. So here they got the commander, so I don't know if that's fair. No, it's not going to win. Okay. Oh, it might. Yeah, they got the commander. Oh, but they killed their commander too. So that was kind of a clown fiesta, but that's actually kind of how it goes with Blackhawks a lot of times. I would say definitely stronger than it was, but clearly not super strong. They only killed one unit. And that one unit happened to be the commander. Okay, event fixes. Typo and stat fixes. Modding, there have been quite a few new commands. Not formation, only MNR can now be used multiple times. I'm not familiar with those commands very much. Spell commands, not... Ah, man, I do not know what MNR is. Set home. I guess this allows you to set the home province for a unit, aka where it's going to go back to. If it's like homesick, or potentially this might even tie to like immortality. New item commands, clear and unique. Dom sale. This is basically the Oh god, I forget the nation. What nation is it that gets that? So I guess you can just do kind of the Dominion sailing with more nations now. Where are you, buddy? Was it Middle Age? Phaeacia, yeah, Isle of the Dark Ship. So it was Phaeacia. New monster and item commands. I don't think this is going to be super applicable to most of you, but some of the mod game, like a lot of these are going to unlock really cool things for modders to do. And almost most of the way Illwinter does these is it'll be specific requests from kind of prolific modders that, hey, if I had this thing and you put it in, I could do more cool things with some of the nations I'm designing. So even if we don't know what all these do, or, I'd have to sit here and research what each of these are going to do. Just know that when they get put in, oftentimes that means that the mod nations and stuff like Hellenica or Dominions Enhanced or stuff like that, those can all be upgraded and become cooler. So anyway, that's all cool. And now we're going to actually go and talk about the new nations. So the new nations, we have Ind and Naba, and I'm not going to do a national overview, but I will show you most of the units in there and kind of give you a flavor for what they're like. And I will say these nations are very cool. They are... so this is Ind. They are probably as unique a nation as exists in Dominions and the vanilla game. In your capital, you recruit guys that auto-bless, meaning you don't have to bless them in combat. They start out blessed. You have limited recruitment. You can only get 2 of each of these, the Baculite and the Mirror Guard. And then the Soldier Priest, I think you can get an unlimited, quote-unquote, unlimited number, but it's going to be limited by how many temples you have. The weird thing, and then they also have these guys. The weird thing is you can't recruit these guys outside of your capital. That I'm aware of in any way. Like, when you build forts in other places, you don't get your normal, like, any of your normal capital units, really. I think you get the Sage. Right, you get this guy, he can be recruited in other forts, but in general, you don't. The units you get in your capital are nothing like the units you get in all your forts. I guess I should say a word about kind of the lore. This nation is based on... Oh god, I hope it says in here somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. Prester John or something? Okay, anyway. But there's basically a legend that some European explorer missionary went off and got lost, depending on which particular legend you read, somewhere in Asia, somewhere in, like India or China, or maybe parts of the legend also suggest Africa, and that he had set up some wonderful Christian community over there. And anyway, so there's this whole like mythology around that, and that's what this nation is based off of. And I don't know anything. It would be fun to read more. If I do a national overview, I promise I'll read more about the mythology of Prester John. But as of now, I haven't. So with that, we're just going to kind of cover this crazy nation in a very kind of brief overview. We've got the sacred units, which you can only make in your capital. For magic access, we've got astral, earth, fire, blood, some water, nature, and death, which is a very broad spectrum. We've got high astral, a small but possible chance of getting astral 3 or astral 4, which is phenomenal. And then you have the astral earth cross path, which is one of the best cross paths in the game. So you can do all those sorts of things. You can forge crystal coins. Basically, this guy can get up to Astral 5. Unless you roll the Astral random, you can't really get up to the very critical Astral 6 for climbing deep into Astral. We have these guys who are much more spammable. And if you're putting them in communions, they're going to be basically just as good as those guys. We have the Primate King. Holy 3, which means he's useful right at the beginning for early wars. Especially if you're getting rushed by, elite type units for just spamming out Smite. He does take 4 commander points. He can also enter into a communion, which is kind of cool. And here, yeah. And then we've got priest. Everybody's a priest that you can get in your capital anyway. We also have Cannibal Warlords we can get. Berserker 3 built in, which is kind of nice. We have Bishop of Vicomtes, which are, they reduce unrest, but they can also recruit cannibals, which is kind of interesting. A lot of this, I think, if you think about like what the nation is, it's kind of the old European view of like, we're going to go civilize the rest of the world, and everybody else out there is like barbarians and cannibals. Like, all right. But anyway. So yeah, these are we are your peaceful overlords, right? But that's kind of what I like about this. It's like, what happens if we just completely buy, the story of the virtuous missionaries. So these guys reduce unrest, but they recruit cannibals to do their bidding. But the cannibals cause unrest, which is kind of interesting. These guys. So this is basically lord over the heathen tribes. It's basically capture slaves, but you can only have one guy doing it per province, and the strength of it is how much you can do it for. High turmoil scales increases the number of mustered heathens. And the presence of a fort reduces it by equal part to its administration value. So that's interesting. So we'll talk a little bit, because this isn't going to be a full national overview, about kind of the different ways this nation plays just in broad strokes. And then we have this guy who's a better lord over heathens. And he's also Holy 3. And then we have this guy, the Cannibal Shaymin Chief, who's going to be a Blood 1 mage. Now, these guys you can get... Well, let's see if I actually have them. Yeah, these guys you can get in any unforted province, right? So they're foreign recruits, so all you have to do is plop a lab down and you can slowly get them, or a temple for these guys. But these guys only need a lab. They're heretics. And now we're going to go through and show you what you get in forts you build other places, and it's kind of crazy. You get, if you build a fort in a wasteland, you get these giants, who are basically low-tier supercombatants with good gear. If you put good gear on them, they will be low-tier supercombatants. They're not sacred, so they're not going to benefit from your bliss. They're heretics, so you have to be careful where you put them. And they're inept researchers, and they're also homesick. So, if you put region on them and they're going to be fighting a fair bit, it doesn't really matter, the homesickness, because they'll just pop up to full HP at the beginning of every combat. But, it's still a little bit of a zinger. You can get them as troops. As troops, I would say they're remarkably unexceptional, unless you just really need that 30 damage, pop. But I think we have better options for this nation. But anyway, that's kind of cool. Not something I was expecting to find on this nation. Coming down, we've got, if we build it, this is a cave in a forest. So here we can get the bishops. We can also get the Cynocephalian dudes. This is not from it being a cave province. This is a Zot cave, okay? That's why you see the Zots here. These guys are from us building a fort. These are our fort recruits. And they come in a few flavors. We've got the Cynocephalian hunters. And their cost of it's not just different equipment, it's different gold cost. These are 14, but the best ones we get are 28 gold. Right, so twice as expensive. These guys have short bows, they can go berserk, and they've got decent damage output with 2. Basically, it's going to be attack density of 4 per square at 16. Once they go berserk, it's going to be 18 per attack, which is pretty damn killy for 14 gold. I would put this at like very value troop. Next, we have the Flesh Eater. Now they're going to cost 14, so like 20-30% more expensive. But they have Berserker too, and just slightly better weapons. Yeah. Trying to see if there were any other differences here. Lenin and Curious, which is a little bit better. Yeah, so they just have a little bit better protection. Not sure if it's worth the extra increased price for these guys, because they're not a ton better. They aren't going to get repelled as much, because the spear is link 3, so that is probably one thing. But the repel they don't have to worry about once they go berserk. Hit points. They also get 2 more hit points, and then attack skill. Could be worth it. These guys do have higher attack. Defense is 11, 9. Yeah, these guys have better defense too. So these guys very well could be worth the extra gold outlay. But these guys, the Gog Reavers, they are big and beefy. They've got 3 attacks, which are very high damage. And their attack skill's quite high, and they've got Berserker 4, which means, and they have 22 hit points. Once they go Berserk, these guys become little killing machines. Just ridiculously high attack density, right? Because you have to imagine, these stats are going to go to like 17 attack. Or 16, 17 attack. And this is going to go to like 25 damage. So this is very, very, very killy. And they're not terribly high encumbrance, which is kind of nice when you combo it with Berserker. Dark Vision 50 is also pretty good, and they're also Pillagers. 28 is expensive, obviously. But if you're fighting PD, it might be better to just have more of the Flesh Eaters, or more of the Hunters. If you're planning on fighting player armies, you might want some Gogs mixed in, because the Gogs are going to kill higher quality units much better than the other guys. So it could be the right thing is a mix of Gogs and then some other chaff to kind of do a little bit of damage, but also to just clear out chaff. And then we have the Flesh Hunter, which is a 20 gold variety. And it basically has 3 attacks. It's stealthy, and it has a short bow. Now, I don't believe any of these other ones are stealthy. Yeah, this is the only stealthy one. So if you're going to be doing sneaky things, these guys can be pretty good. And I imagine they will just tear through PD. Now, all these guys cause unrest. But yeah, these are pretty cool. Importantly, we're not going to go through all the stuff, but you get basically a Nature 1 mage who's a heretic. We have a lot of different kinds of heretics. We got these guys who are heretics, and we've got these guys who are heretics. These guys are heretic too, but you can see these guys are pretty damn good blood mages. Death 1, Nature 1, Blood 2. I would say this is very good. And then you can get a Nature, Death, or Blood random. So, very nice, I would say. And then combined with the fact that you have your... Do we not see him here? Combined with the fact we have the Cannibal Shaymins, I would say you have reasonably strong blood access. What it appears to be, though, with all the Cannibal troops, if you choose to make forts, because you can do this without forts, and just kind of get... Who would you even get? Okay, I really don't know how to play the nation, but it seems that what basically, in your capital, you don't have the issue, but wherever you're recruiting other types of troops, especially a lot of the good ones, a lot of them are heretics. And then you're going to have to commit a fair number of your resources to preaching away, or to preaching up your dominion if you actually want to have it there. But it also leads to play where you could potentially trash your scales, and you could potentially trash your scales, have a good bless, have a really powerful god, something like that, and then just count on your dominion not really being there. You can just heretic it all away, which is kind of interesting. The weird thing about that is No, but we're not going to talk about that now. That's getting a little too deep into it. Okay, so anyway, that's the Cynocephalian dudes. In forests, we tend to get these guys. We get Orinoid kings and their taskmasters. They have centaur slaves that work for them, who are pretty reasonable. Like a 20 gold longbow, kind of expensive, but on a pretty good chassis. And then they're only going to have the upkeep of a 10 gold dude. So, you know, I would say this is reasonable. Pretty high strength, so it's a pretty high damage longbow. We've got these guys, centaur chariots, not slaves, unfortunately. But trample, pretty good tool to have in your toolkit. And then we have satyr slaves, who are just ridiculously cheap. So these guys, I think, are going to serve as reasonably effective siege chaff, raiding chaff, right? Because they're not going to be causing much upkeep. They probably could use a buff or two if they're raiding, because these guys in and of themselves aren't going to be terribly impressive. But anyway, very low on upkeep. And then we have the men. We get crossbowmen, which is reasonably, well, no, okay, this middle-aged, so it's not rare. We get the Oinoid warriors, who are basically just your run-of-the-mill warriors. 13 protection, I would say, is on the higher, like, pretty good for middle-age. Not great, but not horrible. And then we have the knights. 40 gold, which is basically the standard cost for heavy infantry. So anyway, they're pretty cool. And then we get the king, who was the taskmaster. I don't think we get the hunter, the huntress, which is a beastmaster for leading beasts. I'm not sure what beasts we get. I think we have some spells that get us beasts. But they also have a net, and they're stealthy. Potentially could be assassins, actually. Would not be horrible, given that they have a net. But yeah, otherwise, not super exceptional here. And then we get the Abbot Sage here. Good for researching. The next up we get, in our little forts, if we build anything in the plains, here you can see we also built in the plains. You basically get little dwarf people, little hobergs. So here we get the Piconnier, which are, they're all size 1. But you can see they basically, so like this guy is basically the Hoberg guard, the guy with plate mail, very high defense and a shield, actually pretty hard to kill in combat. And he's got his corollary down here, this guy who's 17 defense, very high. There, when you only size 1, you basically never get a harass penalty either, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, gonna be pretty damn hard to hit. They also take buffs really well, just because of their density. So anyway, these guys are kind of cool. I think they function more as like speed bumps, but they can be killy speed bumps if you buff them up, and very hard to run over speed bumps if you buff them up. We also get the Piconnier Scholar, who's an Earth 1 mage, but also adept researcher, which, you know, it's fine. Earth 1's not great, though. But you can use them in a pinch. And it may be some of your, no, you have Earth access otherwise. So I don't know. I can't really think of a super awesome niche for these guys, but maybe if you put Earth boots on them, then they're Earth 2 and then they're okay. I think we've been through most of them now. Yeah, we did the wastelands, we did the forest, we did the plains, and we did the cave. Cave and forest, yeah. So I think we've been through most of them. We get some kind of cool summons with these guys, but we're not going to go into all of them. And then next we have Naba. I just have a pile of stuff I've recruited. This one it wasn't as complicated. I don't really want to get deep into a national overview, but I did want to give you a flavor. Well, you know what, guys? 1 second. I know it's like a little manic here, but I want to give some closing thoughts on End, even though we're not doing a national overview. They have a very weird mechanic where you can either focus on the Bless, which is going to be basically only for your capital-only units, but every temple you build is going to allow you to recruit an additional sacred unit, not like you don't have to wait for your dominion strength to go up. So potentially you can have, especially if you have a lot of resources, you could have a pretty huge amount of sacreds coming out of your capital. But then you get a bunch of cool recruit anywhere dudes. So I think it's a... And you also have a bunch of heretics. So you have all sorts of things to manage and all sorts of trade-offs. You have to say, you know, what are the kind of units I want to get? Do I want to get my sacreds? Do I want to get the non-sacreds? Do you want to get both? If you get sacreds, and the kind of the way I'm thinking about it, you have to ask yourself, you know, what is the role that I want these guys to fill that my non-sacreds don't fill? And then what's the cheapest way to make them do that? But it also opens up possibilities which, you know, could be way better than that, like going into a complete Hellblast, focusing on getting a lot of temples out, covering the world in your dominion, and then just spamming these guys out. But then you have to be really careful about all the heretics in your roster, if you really want to spread your own dominion. But potentially these guys with the Hellblast could be really good. They get Dominion conflict bonus. It hides province ownership too. You also get +1 for an Astral Bless. I feel like there's something else too. But yeah, you know, and then if you do go a Hellbless, the Heretic can actually be a good thing because it can keep your own Dominion out. So yeah, I would say there's it's a very cool nation. You get a bunch of summons too. We're not going to go through all of them, but a bunch of interesting trade-offs. Do you want to have good bless? Do you want to have good scales? Do you want to heretic all the dominion out of your lands? Do you want to preach and compensate for all the heretics you're going to have? How hard do you want to go into blood? And then based on the type of terrain that you have in your empire, it will actually determine what types of troops you can get. And so then you have to decide where you're going to build your forts, which is going to determine what types of troops you get. So in some ways, you have a ton of flexibility within the nation because you can build just like if you were to list the actual unit roster that's going to come from all of these different terrain types, it's a really big unit roster. But once you build a fort there, you're kind of hard committed to I'm going to build that type of unit. So lot of different ways to play this. I think it'll be interesting to see how really good players handle it. But I think this is one you could definitely burn some mental calories figuring out how to min-max. So now we have Naba, and Naba is based off of, I don't even know, why don't we read it? But it's basically like an ancient desert people in, I guess, northern Africa. But I think this is some of like the jinn myths and the, you know, some of the Arabian mythology. So we'll go through these guys pretty quickly. We're not going to spend nearly as much time on them as End, but they are very cool. They get Dominion hides province ownership, which is pretty huge. They get giant forts, and they have cheap labs. Cheap labs are super nice for early research scaling, etc. And then they have really good magic paths. For their cap-only mage, they get the Malika, which is Air 3, Fire 3, Earth 1, with a random of one of these 5. Now, it's slow to recruit, but first of all, we get Air 4, which is very critical for like getting very high into air. Air 4 is like the threshold for boosting all the way up into high air stuff. So that's really cool. And then once you have one Air 4, they can make air boosters for everybody else. Astral means solar eclipse, potentially. Earth is going to be pretty good for doing Staff of Elemental Mastery. And then nature is nice to have as a crosspath there. It gives you things like rainbow armor. And then fire, just really high fire is not bad. But they're ethereal, they're glamored. They also have obfuscate, which was that skill that was added to this patch. But basically, it's going to hide units in the army that are not normally hidden. So increases the glamourness of your dudes. So these are like really scary elves, and they can also cloud trapeze do a bunch of magic phase attacks. I would say those are very, very good units. They're expensive, but they're really good. We get this guy who can be recruited in all non-fort provinces. He gets a Haas, which is basically a hyena dude, who's pretty solid. And then he gets a random in fire, air, earth, or astral. So basically he's going to be double in one of these, which these are all pretty useful paths to be double in. Like whichever one you get 2 in, that's going to be kind of mostly how you use them. The astral ones will be kind of nice just because you can throw them in a communion once you get enough of them. And coming down the list, but this is foreign recruit, so you can get this in any province with a lab. Then we have these guys who are basically like the little brothers of the Malikas. They basically have air 2, which means they can still cloud trapeze. They have fire 2, which still means they can phoenix power. And then they're going to get a random fire, earth, or astral. And that's going to be pretty good. The earth ones are going to be able to do earth power. The fire ones are going to be really good fire mages. And the astral ones can also jump into your communions. Then we get these guys, the Janimir, and they are pretty cool. They're going to get a fire, air, or earth random, and these guys, especially the air randoms, can be really good thugs. They're stealthy, which is really nice to have on a thug, and they're glamored, which is also pretty damn nice. Base stats are pretty good, base HP is pretty good, base MR is pretty good. Glamour is also just good to have on there. The earth ones are probably going to be your stronger thugs. It's probably worth considering on your Earth ones empowering an air to get them to be air 2, Earth 1, because that is a really good thug path. But yeah, these guys are pretty solid. And then coming down here, we've got Astral 1, Holy 2. In the Middle Ages, this is good. Any Astral Holy means you can do banishment communions, so that's super nice to have. And then they also have Fortune Teller, which is nice. It also means you can get Divine Blessing wherever you want to, just through Astral Priest communions. Earth 1, Holy 1, nothing very special there. And then we get these guys, the Sheks? I think that's a Shek. But these guys are pillagers and stealthy raiders. They can lead 60 dudes. So I would say pretty solid. I don't think we have many other pillagers here. Though you can potentially put like the executioner axe on other dudes and have them pillage the same province that this guy is going to pillage, which could be nice. And then we have this guy who's a scout who can also pillage, which is kind of interesting. Then we have the Namibian desert warrior. And these guys are basically short bowmen with high damage scimitars. So they're also skirmishers, which means they don't suffer a penalty when fighting, but they're also undisciplined. So I guess they just don't get the morale penalty from fighting in skirmisher mode. And then you've got these guys who who are pretty okay troops. Nothing to write home about, but I would say solid, very middling troops. A little bit higher damage than other heavy infantry. That's kind of the only thing noteworthy, and then desert survival. Javelins and spears, low resource costs. This would be probably what I would look at for scales expansion, because javelins are really good for scales expansion. And then spears are pretty good. So there's that. And then we have these guys, the Namibian camel riders. And these guys are skirmishers, but they're not undisciplined. And then they have composite bows, which are pretty good. And then they have scimitars, which are pretty good. They don't have much armor. So, and then pillaging and stealthy is really nice. So I think there's things to figure out, like how do you do stealthy raiding with these guys, or stealthy pillaging, or whatever you're going to do. And I think part of that will involve either getting these guys in a critical mass, where the composite bows are going to be good, or figuring out how to buff them as part of the pillaging or raiding. Because if you get these guys in close combat, they really are going to need some kind of buffs. Next up, we have the Adite archers, which basically have a great bow, which is a big freaking weapon. And then a short sword, which is pretty high damage and they have pretty good armor. So this is pretty similar to like Hinnom, but it's you're always, I think I've always been like tempted to want to use some guys like this, but then you really can't mass them. But this is a nation that has all the great tools to make an archer, be like a mid-game archer superpower, right? They have all the air magic, which is really, really important for archer superpowers, and they have fire magic, which is important. So, and then they have some earth access, which is good for strength of giants and stuff. So, this nation has all the tools to be an archer superpower in the middle game. And these guys are going to be very hard-hitting archers. How much ammo do they have? 12. Okay. And then we have these guys with javelins. So we have a fair amount of javelins, and javelin strats go pretty well with archery strats. And then we have these guys with scimitars and slightly better armor. A fair amount of hit points, and then size 3 is a good size to be, because you're still going to have okay attack density, but you're going to have enough HP that, you know, during expansion it's less likely you die. I'd probably also test expansion with these guys. And then finally we have our Sacred. Our Sacred is fire resistant, glamored as an elf would be, has iron vulnerability as all elves are going to have now, and it has a bronze scimitar, and that's about it. But stealthy, bodyguard too. So I would say pretty good, pretty solid, but you know, cap only. This nation has a bunch of cool summons. It has djinns and things it can get, but we're not going to go through all the summons. But in summary, I think this is like a pretty cool nation with pretty cool mages and thugs. Pretty decent troops. I would say better than average archers and better than average stealth. So a very cool nation, a very cool patch. It's going to be interesting to see how this mixes up Middle Age. The thing about starting in Middle Age, or about the nation being in Middle Age, is that it's kind of it has the most overpowered nations in it right now, with Scaleria and Nazca. And then there's a lot of high tier nations, but they're just not on the tier of like Scaleria and Nazca. But like Middle Age Relay's really strong, Middle Age Ulm's really strong, Ashdod's really strong. There's a bunch of like really good stuff in Middle Age. So it's a really hard nation. It's a really hard era to make a new nation for. But I would say these are both. It's going to be interesting to see what metas evolve for these. Like, what are going to be the strategies people use when they play them? Because I think these could both be very strong nations if played correctly. I don't think none of them are jumping out at me right now as being completely broken, like at a Scaleria Nazca level. But I could easily see them being kind of high tier nations within Middle Age. So anyway, I think that's it's pretty exciting to have new nations added to the game. It's pretty nice getting all the UI patches and other kind of patches that have come in. There were a few bugs that were introduced with this. I think most of them have been worked out now. There's a few minor things with like recruitment not working precisely. People have been posting about that in my channel. To be honest, I don't completely understand it, but they've been pretty detailed in describing how it's like a rounding error on the last recruited guy. Sometimes it doesn't transfer properly. Like how many resources got used and all that, which I think I've kind of noticed before the patch, so I think that might have been a pre-existing issue. But anyway, I'm not familiar enough on the details, but there were some big issues that came out that the devs fixed right away with this. So with the quick hotfix after this major patch. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see y'all in a game. Cheers.